Hello and welcome to another episode of Heresy Grad School. I am your adjunct professor, Jesse. I'm here today with your tenured professors, Jason, Pat, and David.
Heyo.
Hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
So we are back with more Dark Angel Book 9 discussion. And tonight we're going to be going through pages 88 and 89, if we can make it to 89. I know sometimes we get a little sidetracked, but that's fine, because there's a lot to take in with this book.
So much lore. Oh my god.
So with that, where do we want to start off with? 88, Fortress of Pride?
Yeah, definitely. Just for those of you guys who might be dropping in, haven't listened to the last couple or few episodes we've recorded, definitely go back and give them a listen. You know, I think the last episode we talked about is some of the deep complexity and nuance of the Dark Angels and like their orders and their hierarchy. So we're definitely going to be getting into that again, touching on that as like a mainstay of the Legion, right? That's sort of who they are and sort of how that shapes them over the course of the Great Crusade and the Heresy. So I don't know, Jesse, I've been doing a lot of sort of extra reading at home. Finished Luther, almost done with the Lion, the Primarch novel, and I've actually just finished Mortis. So I promise no spoiler alerts on that one. But yeah, man, the Dark Angels are a huge part of I want to say the beginning Heresy, and then the late Heresy. They come in really strong at the end.
I'm really delighted that they're actually making an appearance in the Siege of Terra.
Yeah.
Because for years, we kind of expected, they kind of showed up late, but well, without little spoilers, obviously in Saturnine at the end, it showed up with Dark Angels showing up, so that was nice. But we won't go into it anymore because I also haven't read Mortis yet.
All right, no spoilers. Just teasers.
But it makes sense also with them, not being around in the meat of the Heresy due to the fact that they were launched off into the eastern fringes by Horus as kind of a plan to keep them out of the way for most of the Heresy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to speak to sort of the intent of the Lion, right? He wasn't just somebody who could be, I think, commanded, even by the War Master. I think it speaks to his purpose and design. I think we've touched on this before. Each Primarch sort of has a purpose and design, archetypal, and the Lion is really his purpose is to exterminate without trace any potential threat to humanity as a species, like without prejudice, without sympathy, without regard, just wipe it off the face of the earth, and so that it's not even recorded or remembered in any history book, right?
Right. Like I think that the Primarch novel mentioned that, while Leman Russ may have been his executioner, the Lion was his exterminator.
Yeah. Yeah, like so Russ is sort of he's a contingency plan, or I guess what do you call it? A deterrent. I think that's the word they use, right? He's a deterrent so that, nobody goes astray. Mm-hmm. But that the Lion, when he's sent in with the First Legion,
the deterrent part is over with.
Yeah.
There's no hope for you at that point.
Right. Like there's no quarter, there's no means to an end that doesn't. Yeah,
it ends badly for you if you're up against the Dark Angels.
Yeah, for sure. There's some interesting points I want to touch on to that end. I definitely want to talk to Jason about this because as I listen to sort of the Primarch series, I think there's even a hidden purpose to the Dark Angels and the Lion, like a contingency within a contingency. There's a reason they were given the weapons of Old Night, right?
Sure.
But I definitely want to hit on that a little bit later. But yeah, man, go ahead.
Let's get into it. I'll start with the first section of Fortress of Pride. Now I'll read a little bit and we can talk about our thoughts about it and see where it goes from there. On page 88 of Fortress of Pride. These trials would shape the Legion into a fearsome weapon, the largest and most heavily armed of all Legionis Astartes during the early years of the Great Crusade. They fielded more warriors under arms, maintained a larger fleet, and had access to weaponry more powerful than any of their brother legions at that time, even those such as the Luna Wolves and Space Wolves, which had already been reunited with their Primarchs. The Grand Master of the First Legion stood at the left hand of the Emperor, one of the most influential personages in the early Imperial Court, whose council was second only to that of Malcador and Horus Lupercal. Despite the hidden nature of many of their triumphs, they were acknowledged by all as preeminent among their post-human kin, the most powerful force at arms in the serried ranks of the Imperial armies. In those heady years of conquest and victory, the First Legion stood true to their name, at the apex of Imperial might, feared by those who stood against the Emperor and his dream of unity, and respected by all those who fought at their side.
Sort of a big deal.
Yeah.
There's kind of a lot of them, yeah.
Well, there are two things I wanted to touch on there. First off, we were chatting about this a little bit before. I love how they say specifically the Grand Master is second only to Malcador and Horus Lupercal. No mention of Constantin Valdor, who is definitely there at this point. The Custodians have been around since before the Unification Wars, and Valdor was one of the first of them. But also, like you guys were talking about, the kind of the difference between Leman Russ and the Lion. Leman Russ feels like the guy that talks a big game. The Lion is the guy that talks absolutely no game at all, but just like by the time, like you said, by the time he shows up, it's like your shit's already done. Like Leman Russ, you cannot not hear coming. Like if Leman Russ gets an assignment, like everybody hears about it.
That's right.
If the Lion is told to do something, you'll never hear about it because everybody that heard about it, besides the Emperor, is now like ashes in, floating through the galaxy.
Right. And it's also interesting to point out that this is the largest force in the Imperium, and they still haven't had their Primarch found yet. I thought that was kind of a fun little tidbit.
Interesting. I don't remember which number the Lion was in, being found. Honestly, that's the one thing, I can't remember between the legions is, which order the Primarchs were found in.
Oh, yeah.
Except for the last three, which were Angron, Corax, and Alfarius.
And by that point, he had just given up.
I feel like the Lion was fairly early on. But I don't know. I'm going to cheat and use Google and talk about it. But
exceptional.
Yeah, we can definitely... the power of the internet is at our fingertips. We'll find out, and we'll make sure we let you listeners know. But yeah, I mean, there's chilling examples of what the Lion is willing to do to accomplish his purpose, right? So it's not just that he has this idea of who he's supposed to be, right? He's willing to sacrifice anything in the name of his oath to the Emperor, right? And I think that's really an important distinction, because when you think of the First Legion, the Knightly Orders, oaths, the Round Table, right? It's honor, right? So you've sort of taken a fealty. You've knelt before, the liege lord and sworn an oath. And nothing in the universe would break the oath that, the lion has taken. And I think that is the most powerful thing you can say about him. So, like, he loves the First Legion. He loves the Dark Angels, and he thinks of them as sons as much as any other Primarch. But if the Emperor was like, take care of this threat to humanity on the eastern fringes, he would not think twice about sacrificing half of his legion to accomplish that mission, right? Like, that's not even a consideration.
Yeah. And he would feel it, but at the same time, he would still do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I found myself on Lexiconum, and they have the order of discovery for the lion as the 11th.
Huh.
And I'm trying to find out
late.
their citation for that. But, the first expedition forums provided by Black Library Publishing author Laurie Golding. And cannot be found. That link is dead. But they say 11th, so there you go. Take that information as you will. But we've been talking about the lion, and yet we still have not even found him in this book yet. He has not been discovered. The Dark Angels are still being led by a Grand Master, Astartes, and they're just running hog wild across the galaxy. So, continue on. Yet, as with all things, the glory of the First Legion would be a fragile thing, and one that could endure only for a short time before becoming something less than it once was. For the First Legion, in those days before the return of their Primarch, the great foe that would topple them from their place of honor would not be any terror from the outer dark, but rather their own hubris. There's that word. There's that word. There's that word. For though the black cruisers of the Legion were ever to be found at the edges of the map, hunting for monsters in the dark between the stars, they now took a perverse pride in pitting themselves against only the most powerful of foes, those that wielded a power equal to that of their own, those in whom they saw a possibility of defeat. At last, a worthy opponent. Other threats deemed too insignificant for the First Legion, too weak to pose a real challenge, foes that would not test their strategies or mettle, would often be bypassed and left to the Imperial Army regiments and other Legion fleets that followed in their wake. Yet with each encounter they grew only stronger. No enemy, no matter how powerful or destructive, could stop them, and each triumph only added to their shield of arrogance they had built around themselves.
Yeah, so I think we start to see something about the, I guess, the chink in the armor, right, of the Dark Angels.
Which
so
seems effectively a sense of masochism almost.
I mean, it's this idea that they have to continually test themselves against a greater adversary. It's the quest, right? Mm-hmm. So if they're not worthy, then they somehow fall short in the eyes of whatever they're the Grand Master, the Emperor, their Primarch, mm-hmm. And so it's this idea that if they're not continuously testing themselves against a worthy opponent, a greater adversary, that they're not accomplishing a worthy end. And I think so you can put this in the sense of the Great Crusade, like there are plenty of legions that went out and said, okay, well, we're rediscovering humanity's lost empire, right? Humanity's lost galactic empire. And we're going to bring you back into the fold. And yeah, you may have resisted us at first, but you guys are not bad people. You're just a little misguided. We're going to take out your leadership, and then we're going to bring you back. Like the Dark Angels, they would have none of that. They'd be like,
screw this planet. Let's keep going.
Yeah, the Solar Auxilia can handle that, right? Or like whatever, right? The next Legion on the list can handle that, but like that's not for them. So yeah, they're going out and they're finding the nightmares in the galaxy to test themselves against.
They're getting deep in the paint.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So, that also leads to the, I think the chink in their armor, right? Which is, you can call it hubris, you can call it whatever you want, but, and then they also form these like internal orders and secret societies, wheels within wheels of, and so it does become, I think, a bit of, the double-edged sword, right? Where they're continually testing themselves, but then that knowledge becomes contained. It's not shared throughout the Legion. It's not shared outside of the Legion. So, it almost becomes like the privilege of the people, the Astartes that go out and gain that. It's interesting.
All right. I'll continue on a little bit more. The stubborn pride that had sustained them through hardships unnumbered now became a double-edged blade. The hexagrammaton, once an ever-shifting body of knowledge that changed to match each challenge, had become fixed in place, the warriors of the first assuming that they had reached the apex of skill and could learn no more. Recruitment from outside their ancient enclaves on Terra and a few other worlds slowed to but a trickle, with those from outside the traditional recruiting grounds considered less valuable. Each battle led them further down the path of willful arrogance, each victory hailed as a triumph of their skill, and each defeat dismissed as folly of lesser breed of warrior and leaders rightfully culled from the Legion by their failure. Tradition and ritual had become more valued than innovation, with each order and host jealously guarding their own small fragments of the Legion's battle lore, certain that it was this scrap of knowledge that was the true heart of the Legion's success. Definitely sounds like the time-old story.
They're going down a dark hole.
Well, it almost sounds like combinations, and I guess this would be really appropriate for the Dark Angels, since they're kind of the template, but it also sounds like they're kind of suffering from some of the same downfalls as some of the other legions. Like the Emperor's Children always had that thing with perfection. Like it was this attainable, like specific goal they could get to. And it's like once they hit it, it's like, oh, well, that's it. I'm perfect. I don't need to improve anymore.
Right.
It's like an attainable, final level. And kind of combine that with a little bit of what was making the Thousand Sons have some issues. Is yes, they were all about the pursuit of knowledge to the point to a fault, but also they were starting to become, even among themselves, before the burning of Prospera, they were starting to become really insular. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, instead of learning knowledge and distributing it to the enlightenment of all, they were becoming really insular and guarding that knowledge jealously.
Yeah, Jason, I think that's a really good point. I think when you think of the First Legion as the template, that they would suffer from some of the flaws of the traitor legions to come, the fallen legions. I think they would certainly have those, inhibitions that are not, guided, by a Primarch or whatever. So I think those are all there because they're not, like we talked about before, they're not homogeneous. They're not taken from a singular sort of intake like the Thousand Sons, right? They're not taken from like a one culture like the Achaemenid Empire. Yeah, and so I think they would have all of those flaws in them. Maybe not to the extent, that some of the traitor legions had, but I think all of those legions fell, the traitor legions, right? This is sort of a segue, but like the traitor legions fell not because they were corrupt in any way, but because they followed their Primarch into damnation. So I think all the flaws are there, and they're just maybe expressed differently. I think it could also be to the Dark Angels' advantage, though, because I think because they're not homogeneous in the same way, that they sort of protect themselves. They become insular to those types of failings, right?
To some degree. I feel like up next, things start to take a bit of a darker turn. There was no pun intended with that either. My bad. So, the Legion began to turn in upon itself, the openness and inquisitive nature of their early years slowly being replaced by a secretive and tradition-bound approach. They had begun the Great Crusade as mentors and guides for the other legions, seeking out the stratagems and tactics through which the potential of the Legionis Astartes might be fully realized, but now came more and more to resent those that had once guided. The other legions claimed world after world for the Emperor, easy victories in the eyes of the First Legion, trivial conquests against unworthy foes, yet ones for which they received laurels and praise equal to that of the First Legion's hard-won battles. Some also came to rival the power of the First. The Ultramarines, now reunited with their Primarch, could claim more warriors under arms, and the Imperial Fists under Dorn boasted the firepower of the immense relic such as the Phalanx in their fleets. To a legion that had built its pride upon a sense of authority, some might say superiority, to find itself now merely one of many would shake its foundations.
Oh no, I just thought of something.
Uh-oh. What's that?
No.
Are the Dark Angels like an analogy for 30K hobbyists?
Not this.
Hang with me on this. So, all right, think about it this way. When you start out as a hobbyist, you're all like bright-eyed and you're asking all these questions and you're excited and you get better and better at stuff. But like slowly, you see it morph from like asking questions to like, no, that's not how you play 30K. This is how you play 30K. And you become like hidebound to tradition and what like, you know, the game quote unquote is.
I don't know. That armor looks a little too Mark 7 for me.
Yeah, I'm not liking that. You playing a Siege of Terror army, bro?
Oh no. It's Anuja's final stroke. This is his parting gift, guys.
And then you can see all the other hobbyists around you just having fun with it, and that it doesn't like make you think like maybe I should try it. No, it makes you bitter and angry because no, they're getting all the easy victories and everybody's just patting them on the back, but it's me doing the real work, keeping this one gate nobody cares about.
I built all these 200 infantry from Forge World resin. Then suddenly you roll up with this GW plastic Mark IV bullshit. What the hell?
Right? You might as well go play 9th edition 40 kids.
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to think too hard on this. I don't want to get sad.
We love all of our listeners. Please enjoy the rest of the show.
Well, yeah,
that's the attitude to have.
Yeah. But yeah, here we see that, you know, finally the legions are starting to catch up, and that's on from what we read in the past. The Dark Angels had a pretty comfortable lead on everybody. They did definitely indeed have the authority over the rest of the Astartes. And now they're starting to sink back into a collective.
Yeah, I think they're doing a really good job on kind of illustrating how that, almost that like stagnation you talked about is really holding them back. Because they're not sharing anything anymore. They're not innovating. Like everybody that learns a thing just like guards it jealously, you know, convinced it's the one thing that keeps them above and better than everybody else in the room.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think absolutely, right? So I think there is some kind of jealousy going on in the First Legion. Maybe not overtly, but I think because they can't talk about what they've done, sometimes they can't even talk about what they've done within their own legion. I mean, they're sworn to secrecy on so many different levels. I mean, Jesse, you know, you read the Primarch novel and you know about the Darkwing protocols. You know, they're only activated in extremis, and people don't even know within their own legion who's who until you sort of recite the right phrase or the right incantation at the right time, at the right place. And it's very esoteric, and it's just Baroque, and I love it. I mean, it's fucking bespoke.
Have you read that scene where they go down into the Dreadwing Armory?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to bring that up with Jason.
That seal with the Dreadwing icon and the Ironwing icon, and Redloss, who's the leader of the Dreadwings, like, even I don't know what's in that thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and he's the keeper of all that stuff down there. He's like, even I don't know what's in that seal.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, there's so many parallels. You guys will get there, but I mean, it's these weapons were given to the First Legion because of what could happen. They were entrusted to the First Legion because of the eventuality of what could happen. And so, it's amazing because they can't even talk about this stuff. So, I mean, just imagine the bitterness that would imbue, I think, in you if you did all these amazing things and then you weren't allowed to post them.
And,
right?
It just dawned on me. It just dawned on me. We know the theory that the Emperor and Malcador planned to have the legions turn on each other at the end. Like, that was the whole plan. That's what Malcador at least claimed to the astropath. I can't remember her name. I feel like we've had this issue before. But the Emperor gave the Dark Angels some absolutely heinous civilization-ending stuff. That's a lot of trust to put into a legion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of trust to put into a Primarch. And so I feel like there was sort of this is what I want to get into, Jason. I don't know if I want to get into it right now. Well, let's go a couple more paragraphs and then we'll get into it.
I'll read the next two so then we can stop at that section. Perhaps the final blow to their fragile pride was to come at Canis Baelor, where simple conquest and stubborn complacency became ignominy and disaster. Here, in an otherwise insignificant system home to a Xenos breed as yet uncatalogued by the sage brothers of orders of extinction and annihilation, the First Legion and its Grand Master committed a small force to the assault, confident in their ability to prevail and secure in the tested strategies of the hosts and orders. Yet the Xenos of Canis Baelor, their identity long since purged from records, proved a threat unlike any faced before, fighting without regard for sane tactics and with a technology that defied rational explanation. The First Legion's initial attack was repulsed with heavy losses, an indignity that the First Legion had not known for decades. Defeat was a foe they had thought they had conquered, and pride began to cloud their wisdom. A second assault followed, and then a third, each repulsed in turn with mounting losses. With his faultless record now tainted, and his pride sorely wounded, Grandmaster Thrane led one final assault, refusing to accept that any might equal to his own warriors in skill and tenacity. This assault, even weakened by the losses already sustained, could have swayed through the Xenos forces defending the planet, but could not overcome the sheer numerical superiority of the foe. Overwhelmed, it teetered on the brink of annihilation. Grandmaster Thrane, realizing the folly of pride that had driven him into battle, chose to remain behind with his lifeguard, sacrificing himself to allow the retrieval of valuable combat assets. Canis Baelor was reduced to ashes from orbit, all trace of life on its surface incinerated in nucleonic fire, a measure that many argued should have been taken earlier had pride not forced their hand. All records of the foe that had fought were sealed away, though they would later be recovered by the Order of Broken Claws before being sealed once again for reasons equally lost to history. The loss, both of the battle and of Grandmaster Thrane, proved a catalyst for turmoil amongst the ranks of the Legion. Each of the masters of the hosts and the preceptors of the orders were sure that had their doctrines been given primacy, they could have turned the tide of battle. A subtle struggle for power erupted among the complex tiers of authority within the Legion, a struggle that slowed the pace of their conquests and threatened to unseat the Legion from its preeminent position of honor once and for all. So, Canis Baelor. I feel like this is the first time I ever heard that planet being mentioned, but that's nothing new with Black Books.
Quick to the star chart, Dave.
So, go ahead.
No. That's your job. You're the map guy.
Oh, yeah.
Canis Baylor.
0.03 star date. No, I mean, this is the test for sure of the Dark Angels. And they've suffered a huge loss. They've suffered the loss of a Grand Master, which is like
effectively their Primarch at that time.
Absolutely.
Maybe not with not as much love and care, but at the same time, he is the supreme leader of the Legion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so it's not bred into them at a genetic level, but I think it certainly is in terms of fealty, and we're talking about the Dark Angels, right? It's all about that oath, right? They're oath bound to Grand Master Thrane, and without that central figure, the orders start to unravel, right? It's just, so where is the hierarchy, right? Where is the Liege Lord? Where is that manifest destiny, if you will, right? So, it's a crisis moment for the Dark Angels, for sure, because there's all of these sort of, orders and,
There's a lot of them at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they say it was like over 100, I think.
It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you imagine all that infighting with over 100 different, secret orders in your legion? It's a recipe for disaster, to say the least.
But it could also be a recipe for success, right? So, I mean, to be the devil's advocate on this, and when you get to the Primarch novel, I don't want to be a spoiler alert on this, but like there is a xenospecies of which very few people know anything about because the records are sealed. But there are like a handful of people within the Dark Angels that know something about that xenospecies, and they're like, yeah, man, we should probably talk about this, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's get together and let's come up with a plan. And it's sort of, it's a big deal.
All right, so now, with the Legion at its lowest at that point, we're going to move on to the Ill-Made Knight, the next section on page 89. The struggle was fought most fiercely upon the floor of the First Legion's Great Hall of Council at Grammari. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. At the heart of the Legion. There, where once the masters and preceptors of the Legion had created much of the wisdom that now guided the Legiones Astartes as a whole, a storm of vitriol and admonition had erupted. Each of the masters of the Legion, unable or unwilling to see fault in their own wisdom, sought to attach it to that of their fellows, so that it might be excised from the First Legion. Most conscientious of all was the selection of a new Grand Master, for few would countenance the selection of a warrior from a host other than their own. As the pace of the First Legion's conquest slowed and the deliberations of the Council of Masters stagnated, it would be the intercession of Malcador, first among the Emperor's confidants, to break the deadlock. Rather than present some censure on behalf of the Emperor, he chose instead to sponsor a candidate of his own, seeking to stir the Legion from its doldrums and return them wholeheartedly to war. His words to the Council of Masters was carved upon the litinal of the chamber. Such was their impact, and I'm going to give my best Malcador impression here, so bear with me. A fortress can be held upright by many pillars. Alone they are nothing, but together they are mighty. Yet a fortress must have a master, or else all its strength is for nothing.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
That was really good, man. No,
I closed my eyes and I was in a Black Library book, I swear.
Yeah. Spot on.
Oh, boy. Anyway, so the warrior nominated by the Sigillite was elected by unanimous vote of the council. He was neither master of hosts nor preceptor of the orders, but a war-worn captain from among the vast ranks of the First Legion. Malcador's logic was impeccable, for such a candidate stood for no one branch of the Legion's arts alone, but rather for all as one. Where any of the venerable masters would find nothing but opposition from their peers, a simple warrior found acceptance from all. The warrior chosen was Urien Vendrake, once captain of the 14th Company of 8th Chapter, a Terran taken into Legion after the Emperor had united the war-torn world, and with a grand record of victory as banner and as yet uninitiated into the inner mysteries of any one host or order. His was a legacy of bloodshed and battle, of rousing speeches and glorious last stands. He had stood shoulder to shoulder with his battle brothers through all his service, and spent but little time in ritual or doctrinal debate. His new task was to unify a divided legion and return them to the Great Crusade, and the purpose laid out for them by the Emperor unburdened by doubt and division. As a warrior first and foremost, Vendraig saw the value of bringing the legion fully into the Emperor's Great Crusade, taking his rightful place at the head of their brothers rather than only serving at the fringes of history. For the first time in the Great Crusade, a small contingent of carefully selected remembrancers was allowed to join the Grand Master's entourage, attached to his personal guard and given strictly limited access to the Legion's records, so that they might bear witness to the First Legion's ascension. All that remained was to find a challenge worthy of the Legion, some terrible foe to bind them once again in hatred of enemy, and, as though gifted to them by the Emperor, word arrived of a new terror encountered on the far rim of the Great Crusade, a race known to history as the Rangda.
Okay, so I gotta jump in here, right? Because this is beautiful, like, plot setting. Because number one, Malcador sinking his teeth into the First Legion, right? Trying to appoint a new Grand Master, probably one that is, not. I wouldn't say like subservient, but certainly like not antagonistic to Malcador.
Sure.
You look at sort of this, the Legionnaire sort of background, right? Urien Vendraig, and we don't know anything about Urien Vendraig. I don't think his story has been written yet. Certainly possible, but he's definitely somebody who's good at speeches and uniting the order.
I really feel like, I think it was either Grandmaster Thrane, but I feel like he might have been mentioned in the Hall of Heroes in the Primarch novel.
Okay.
I feel like his name was dropped somewhere in there.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, he probably was. But we sort of see Malcador's hand in all of this again, because as the Legion starts to come unraveled, who is it? Malcador, right? Who, tries to salve the wounds, tries to put in, the person that's going to bring them all back and heal the divide. I don't know. I think it's awesome. I think it speaks to sort of both Malcador's agency in all of this and also the First Legion's place, because all of a sudden they're getting remembrancers? Like, why? I mean, these are deeds that shouldn't be remembered, right? Why are they getting remembrancers? But I mean, Jesse, from reading the Primarch novel, that becomes a very important plot device.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I do like this narrative lane they took with. I don't know, reading that, I kind of got a lot of Garvio Loken vibes too. Just this simple captain of this company, now kind of raised to the forefront of importance. Definitely, Loken wasn't made, Grand Master, but he was made part of the Mournival.
Yeah, I would like to open this up for discussion for sure, and I think Jason and Patrick may have the dissenting vote here, but like, I think when you look at Malcador and who he has chosen, Garvio Loken for sure, and the other sort of knights errant, they're utterly loyal. Right? There's no dissension within their ranks. They're utterly loyal to the cause of the Emperor and Malcador. And I mean, I'm a loyalist too, right? So I believe in it, but I mean, for sure. But it's also like they're fulfilling a duty, right? They're fulfilling a destiny. This is what they're supposed to do. And there's no room for any deviance, right? There's no room for interpretation.
I find it interesting that for as long as Urian had been fighting, that he hadn't been picked up by one of the orders.
So he was sort of unsullied, right?
Yeah. Like he had apparently a long legacy, definitely worthy, and for some reason no one picked him up. I don't know if that's on either the fault of the orders or him just deciding, nah, I like what I'm doing.
Yeah, it was maybe, I mean, like you were saying, it was like a Garvey Loken thing. Like he was staunchly against like lodges and orders when he started out.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he was sort of all right with them once they were explained to him, but he never put any thought into it or joined one. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the same in the Dark Angels, but it seems like kind of the same deal. Like he was more concerned with doing his job of being a captain than he was about the secondaries.
Sure.
Question though, Vendrake, he was the first guy to wield the blade, right? That Corswain has.
I know I've read that name from somewhere else, and he was either the Primarch novel or over here. It was either Thrane or Vendrake who held the blade. Let me see here.
I felt like he used it to start the Rangda genocide.
No, you're right. Well, let's see. It said that the blade was once raised aloft at Advex Moors by Legion Master Urian Vendrake to incite the first Rangdan genocide.
There you go.
There you go. Good catch.
Was it common for legionnaires of the Dark Angels to not be already part of a of one of the different
so I feel it was
organizations?
I feel like it was definitely common for them to not be part of a host, but at the same time, I feel like if you did have a grand enough record, I would be shocked that none of the hosts would try to pick. I'd be shocked if the host didn't try to pick him up.
Right? I mean, he was like a full-fledged captain, and he had plenty of battle honors, and he was decently famous in the Legion already. It's kind of curious that none of the orders did try and pick him up.
Yeah. So I'm starting to wonder if he just loved the thrill of the game and screw the politics.
I think that's a really, really interesting point, Jesse, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think if you think about the politics of secret societies, right? And so it's really, sort of like the playground bully, right? So you're really good at something. It could be kicking the shit out of somebody, or it could be like speaking eloquently at a ballroom dinner. I don't know. But somebody's going to come up to you afterwards and be like, hey, man, you're really good at that, and we'd like to have you join our thing. And there's only 3 of us, but you can't talk about it. And here's here's the coin that gets you in, And so this person, Urian Vendrake, who I've never heard of before, but certainly has a place in history. He must have just said, you know what? No thanks. I can only imagine that he would have said no to numerous offers to join various orders, hosts, secret, societies within the Hextra Grammatican. I mean, there's no possible way that he would have just kind of sailed through that without being. So he's sort of an anomaly, right? I mean, he's sort of an enigma within the Dark Angels.
Because it shows that he's being able to give rousing speeches and glorious last stands. Just a legacy of bloodshed and battle. This guy's no joke. Like Jason said earlier, he's kind of a big deal. So it is pretty shocking. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll one day read more of Urian. But
that'd be cool.
But for now, let's wrap this up with the final paragraph. Encountered by the 105th Pioneer Company of the 5th Legion on an isolated world along the northern rim of the galaxy, thanks White Scars, the Rangda were considered a grave threat to the expanding Imperium. Though at the time their territory was thought to encompass only a single system, they possessed a vile technology and fearsome aspect that warranted the most extreme of responses. Mustering a fleet numbering hundreds of capital warships, the new Grand Master had descended upon the isolated system of Ardvex Moors, where the Rangda had created a vast artificial war moon, an immense engine of war that had cost millions of slave laborers from 100 worlds their lives. This monstrous weapon was defended by a fleet of lumpen and ugly Rangdan warbarks, each bristling with weapons and crewed by slaves whose neural collars enforced their unflinching obedience. The battle that ensued would leave the system of Ardvex Moor as little more than ashes and rubble. All 6 worlds claimed by the Rangda were rendered uninhabitable, their fleets reduced to drifting fields of wreckage, and their vast slave armies utterly annihilated. The campaign lasted for 4 months and cost the lives of some 5,000 of the First Legion, but as the banner of the Imperium was raised over those broken fragments of the Rangdan war moon that had rained down upon the burned husks of Ardex Moors beneath, the Imperium was reminded of the sheer power of the First Legion. And with that, we know that that won't be the last time that they encounter the Rangda, but seems like a pretty solid first impression. But let's talk about they got a war moon, guys. They have a Death Star.
That's no moon?
That's a Death Star.
That's a Death Star.
Yeah. Well,
Pandex in the Corran Deeps, they just blew Regulus up with a Death Star.
oh, yeah. I remember that.
Non-IP infringing massive space war sphere, but it's a Death Star.
Quote unquote war sphere.
We know it's a big old battle station that's spherical in nature and about, small planetoid size.
Might
it's
have
a Death Star.
Really big laser in the front of it. No big deal. Don't worry about it.
It's cool. But yeah, so I didn't know that before, but yeah, the Dark Angels kicked the Rangda's ass the first time around. Well, it cost them 5,000 legionnaires, but considering 6 planets, millions and millions of slave warriors, Death Star, it sounds to me like a pretty efficient victory.
But why didn't the White Scars help? Like, never do we hear the White Scars in reference to.
They're pioneers. They're just scouting around, right?
They just pointed it out.
But I mean, but to be fair, I don't know too much about the White Scars. But when I hear the word pioneer company, it sounds like just scouts, and they're just explorers. Maybe they just saw that they did not have nowhere near the capacity. I don't know how big that particular fleet was. But they're like, there's no way we can take this on. But we do know our big brothers down over at the First Legion have some significant experience with taking on stupid shit.
And that's why they're 5th Legion, not 1st Legion.
There you go. And to think they don't even have their Primarch at this point.
Yeah, the Lion's still nowhere to be found at this point. And they're just having a good old time just monster hunting.
Killing Death Stars and taking names.
It's good read of the rise, the fall, and the potential rise again of the Dark Angels. Losing their first Grand Master Thrane to a charge of hubris. Malcador reining everyone back in by setting them up with their next Grand Master. And kicking the Rangda's ass the first go around. It's a pretty cool group of stories we had here.
Yeah, and we're going to get into it more. I think the Rangda's coming up next, right? So that's not a one campaign.
Oh, yeah. Nope, that was just the first. There's definitely a couple sequels to this one.
Yeah.
And we should be getting close to rediscovering the Lion at this point now, too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because he has to show up, I think, before the second Rangda campaign. So certainly there's a tie-in there with Ulanor and everything else. But just real quick, I don't want to detract from this, but I do kind of want to plant the seed here. We can come back for later discussion. But Jason and I have sort of teed off on this before, and sort of Mechanicum, Imperium, Emperor, right? Cult of Mars. And so here's what I think, right? This blew my mind, right? So this epiphany came to me as I'm reading The Lion, and like all the weaponry, the Dark Age technology, and it's way more than you think. It's not just a simple, rad bomb or
a couple fancy pistols here or there.
Biophage weaponry. No, I mean, this is like some deep stuff, right? I think they're the contingency against the Mechanicum.
I think that's called out in the book, actually.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Jason?
Didn't want to spoil it for you, but
I mean, it'd make a lot of sense. It does seem, especially starting out, it kind of seems like the only thing they'd really have that could match the Mechanicum.
Yeah,
and so it would make a lot of sense if that was kind of like their contingency plan.
They're ace in the hole.
Yeah. I think I mean, the more I read into the First Legion, the more I read into sort of what they have in their war piles and stocks and vaults, and like the Emperor's sort of just, I mean, he's foresight and just absolute commitment. Yeah. I think they're the contingency.
Yeah, read that section again with them in the vaults of the Dreadwing. I think it is specifically mentioned that if the Mechanicum were to rear its head against the Imperium, the Dark Angels were there to put them down, more or less.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I haven't gotten verbatim, but that'd be cool. We could do that next time for sure.
Yeah. I do have a question because I figured at least one of you might know when we were talking through the book. Who found the Phalanx, or who had the Phalanx? Where was that discovered at? Does anybody know?
Dorn built that, didn't he? Like while he was on Inuit?
Did he? That fucking nerd.
And that was like his contribution when the Emperor found him. It's like, hey, I got this entire frozen ass, ice cube of a planet.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I built this massive space station.
Hey, Dad, look at me. I did something good.
Oh, so
I'm looking at Horus.
I don't mean to just straight up contradict you, Jason, but apparently, according to Lexicon, it was constructed many millennia ago by unknown hands during the Dark Age of technology.
Oh, so he didn't build the Phalanx, he just found it.
Yeah, that's probably it. I'm trying to figure that. So here we go. The secrets of Phalanx's construction are long forgotten, though it is known that the Primarch Rogel Dorn brought it into the Emperor's service at the first time of their first meeting, and it performed proudly ever since. Sure, I'll join you. Oh, hey, want to check out my ride? Enter Phalanx. Very interesting.
I found it.
Yeah, this is mine. I made this. This is mine now. Okay, cool. Well, let's wrap this episode up, guys. You had anything else you want to mention? Any other side notes before we close this one out?
No, I think I'm good to go. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun talking with you guys again. It's been too long.
Course.
Dave, you got anything else?
No, I want to say thanks again to everyone for listening, and thanks for talking about this, because I mean, I'll be honest, like Dark Angels were not my thing before we started this Heresy Grad School thing, and I have gained an amazing appreciation for them, and yeah, man, they're pretty cool. They're pretty fucking cool. I gotta be honest, like, kind of into them now. So, I mean, not saying I'm like start an army, but like, definitely.
Well, that's the worst part with the Dark Angels. You can make any army you really want to with them.
Yeah, play traitor, play loyalist. I
was thinking even like if you want to do like an armored company, if you want to do like secretive, like assassination armies, if you just want to run a whole bunch of just infantry, you can, and they all have different rights of war to interact with that.
Oh, yeah, for loyalists, they are pretty cool.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, for loyalists.
For loyalists, hey, you got to be the best at something.
They're not all loyalists.
But with that, once again, thank you all for taking time to listen to our podcast. We greatly appreciate any input, any feedback. We'd love to hear it from you guys, what you like, what you didn't like. And with your support, we make it better. Be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to this. Just hit that subscribe in your podcast app. We'll be there. You can join our Discord server, which the link will be in the description and the show notes. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at RR30K Podcast. You can go over to Instagram at remembrancers_retreat. You can visit our website, rr30k.com. This is where you can find a list of all our podcast episodes, as well as the Battlefleet Heresy Compendium, which Austin and Stephen have been working on a book 2 with the focus mostly on the Mechanicum. And we want your feedback for the next few months so we can try to get it locked in. We want to hear some beta feedback. So if you got some opinions, send them our way to bfh@rr30k.com. And let's see, if you really appreciate our podcast and would like to support us financially, go over to patreon.com/RR30K podcast. From there, you can sign up to one of our tiers, each with different little bonuses and potentially swags, some stickers and stuff. I'll be getting some new stickers here pretty soon. One focused on this episode, or this series for the Dark Angels Heresy Grad School. It's super cute. You can see it on Instagram. And once I get those stickers in, Legion Centurions and up will be sent one. And as always, we'd like to thank all our patrons individually, starting with our Praetor tier, Alex Self, Chris Mack, Jacob Dillon, Garner.Tree of Woe, Joe from Music City Heresy, Luke Rizzuto, Matthew Boyce, Mr. Baldwick, Nicholas Quenga, and Sar Luther. Our Legion Centurions, Andrew N., Angry Boy, Duncan, John Christensen, M. Tanzer, Queen Corswain, Scott LeMay, the original Applesauce. And finally, our Legion Sergeants, Aaron Maynard, Agrippina, new one, thank you very much, Emily O'Hare, Garrett Lowe, Mr. Sear, Nick Gillen, The Zoe, and What Do I Call Myself? Once again, we appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Keep those dice rolling, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.